As always, Jamie McLennan and all of our hockey insiders are brought to you by Pro-Am Sports. Gear up for game day with Oilers Adidas jerseys with on-ice name and number sewing. Visit them today in Edmonton on the corner of 128th Ave and at St. Albert Trail, or online, of course, at proamsports.ca. Proamsports.ca. All right, let's bring in Jamie McLennan. Lots to get to around the world of the National Hockey League. Noodles, happy Wednesday, happy game day. How you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. How you guys doing today?
We are doing just fine, man. It's weird not having playoff hockey for a week in the middle of the playoffs. It's bizarre to me. It's been strange 7 days, man.
Yeah, I don't like it. I felt like that first round went for like 3 weeks.
Yes.
And like it was stretched. If you actually look from start to finish, I think it was 16 days. That's too long. It's too long. I know here in Toronto, they played one game in 5 days, which was so weird. And I know there's black armbands in the city here, but I look at Edmonton even having that huge layoff. I mean, look what happened to Florida the other day. I thought Boston just rolled from Game 7 right into Game 1. And, Edmonton's been sitting for a while. On the other side, though, so is Vancouver. So let's get going here and let's get it every second day and let's get rocking. I'm pretty excited for the game tonight.
Noodles, who do you think just this whole rest-rust thing, who does it benefit more heading into Game 1 tonight, in your opinion? I know, again, in Edmonton, it's a week. Canucks, the weekend. But who do you think, and looking at the teams and the rosters as they are now, we know Henrique will be out tonight, but who do you think comes out of this one, out of the tracks tonight, more fresh, more focused, more ready to go?
Well, I would say the rest benefits Vancouver if Demko. Now, you're hearing not good things about Demko.
Yeah.
So, you're going to either face DeSmith or Sheloff is his name. That's the pronunciation, I've been told. So you're going to face one of those guys and try and, beat them consistently. I think that you can look at it and you can make an argument for both sides. Evander Kane concerns me because he didn't skate for a while and then all of a sudden he shows up and plays. Like, it's tough to just put your skates on and go play. I know he's a top-tier player, but you want to get into the cadence. You want to feel your teammates. You want to, be practicing hard with the group. But that being said, if he's nicked up, it's as he's the guy who's told us. We didn't ask him. He went out before the playoffs and said, this is what's wrong with me. Rest can help settle things down. I thought Evander Kane was outstanding against LA. They're going to need him to be outstanding against Vancouver because of Vancouver's D. Quinn Hughes is a rock star, but then you've got some big, tall trees on the back end that are physical, and Myers, Zadorov. I always draw a blank on his name. Left shot he got from Seattle.
Carson Soucy. Yeah,
Carson Soucy. Guys like that, they play for keeps. They're going to need Evander Kane to be in their faces and to push them back physically. So he's still an X factor for me, but I think the rest has helped him. So both sides might slightly be a little bit rusty, but I think the game will be high intensity, and the rust will go away immediately once you get into the game.
Noodles, how do you put together a book on Sheloff if you're the owner? He's got 12 games in the National Hockey League. Like, a little bit of a mystery here. His numbers had not been great prior to this stint here against Nashville. So how do you approach a guy that you don't really know at all?
Well, you've got to, this is where your organization has to have good scouts that have watched him in the AHL and watched him play and dug into some of his weaknesses. He's not a big goaltender. I like, one of the things that you look at Jeremy Swayman and how Swayman has played so well for Boston. The one thing that Swayman does really well is his edge work, and he covers the ice really well. So you're not really beating him on the ice. Sheloff had the same thing for me. Again, he made a couple huge saves against Nashville that were in tight with his pads and with his feet. So it looks to me like he's got very good feet. The one thing I would say then to the shooters of the Oilers is anything in tight has got to elevate. So if you think that it's a little quick one-timer. So Zach Hyman has, plays where he tries to get around the skates of the goaltender. If you're going to try and wrap around, you might have to chip it 11 inches to get it over that pad. Same thing, Draisaitl in tight on that back door. That's got to elevate because if Sheloff can get there, he'll make the save. He's got good feet. That's the one thing that I've noticed about him as a goaltender.
Jamie McLennan with us, brought to you by Pro-Am Sports. Does not look like Adam Henrique is going to be able to go for game one. Matthias Janmark is the guy who gets the first crack at that spot alongside McDavid and Zach Hyman, if at least you can go by what we saw yesterday at practice. What do you think of Janmark being a fit with those two guys over, ahead of a Fogle who spent a lot of time in the top six, or Holloway who's played well so far in the playoffs?
I think it's a trial, and Janmark starts there. It doesn't mean he ends there. The one thing that Chris Knobloch's done a really good job of as a coach with the Oilers is identifying who's going and mixing and matching and saying, okay, this guy is going tonight. I need to find him an extra shift. And it's not just finding an extra shift for 97 and 29. It's doubling down on guys that he needs to get going, but he feels like that's the one thing. You give Janmark an opportunity. I think he's a good skater. He can play physical, and he's a responsible player. So that's what you look at for that line. That being said, Janmark's line was quite strong, so that might mess with the mojo of that line as well. So it is, I don't want to say it's a calculated risk, but missing Henrique, who is a really smart player, I think what you try and do is replace him with that type of player, which is a Janmark type of player. I think Fogle's a very straight line guy who can be physical, but Janmark might be a little bit more, we'll call it he might think the game just a little bit higher rate. But I think Fogle will get a chance there. And I think Dylan Holloway should get a chance there as well. He's a great skater. He's got hands. He's playing with lots of confidence. But they might just want to give the responsible first crack to Janmark and see how that unfolds.
TSN's Jamie McLennan with us on the Nielson Show, Edmonton Sports Talk this morning. Noodles, I just wanted to get your thoughts. What matchup kind of jumps off the page to you in this series in looking at, either McDavid and Oilers offense against, you mentioned the towering trees out there on the Vancouver blue line.
Or JT Miller versus 97,
yeah, I mean, what is going to be that matchup that you can kind of see ultimately, I guess, deciding somewhat this series, as it's going to be close, it's going to be tight, it's going to be all those things, Canadiana, all that expected. But what's that one matchup that you could see on the ice that kind of tilts things either way?
Okay, I'm going to give you a couple. I think the lazy one for me, the former goalie, would just be a net, right? Skinner's got to outplay whoever's at the other end. So that's one. But you're right, like the matchups, I think special teams are going to be very key. Because, yes, the Oilers just basically – it was 9 for 17, but it was really 11 for 17. They scored 2 goals there against LA, were in the dying seconds or after the penalty had expired, especially in that last game. But I think special teams will be a difference. The other thing, too, is the physicality of it. I think Vancouver's going to try and come out and bully the Oilers, and the Oilers are going to have to find a way either to match the physicality or you find a way to draw penalties and you make them pay on the power play. So that's where, I think Vancouver's going to try and come out and really press the physicality into them and say, okay, we're going to make you fight for every inch out here. LA tried to do that with McDavid, and what happened is the depth of the team took over. The matchups, like JT Miller is a rock star and he's a great player. I would say the X factor, I talked about Evander Kane being an X factor. Elias Pettersson is going to be an X factor if they can keep him quiet, because he's been quiet so far, right? But he is a guy who's, traditionally, I don't have his numbers against Edmonton, but I always feel like he's been a guy who's had some success against the Oilers. I could be wrong on that, but I just always felt over watching the last couple of years, Pettersson was a guy who had, put up some points against the Oilers and been very effective. I don't factor in much of the regular season series. Ask the Winnipeg Jets in Colorado on that. I mean,
3 of the games are with Woodcroft. The other one didn't have McDavid in it. It's tough to read into any of that.
You're right. But that being said, I just don't think this is a slam dunk for Edmonton. I think this is going to be a hell of a series. They're going to have to work for everything. I think they're going to need their top players to be top players. And you're going to need somebody farther down in the lineup to be a difference maker. Whether that's a Corey Perry having a series. Derek Ryan, I thought, was fantastic last game. I thought he was unbelievable. Guys that just come in and plug and play players that I call them are going to have to be difference makers. And the other guy I'll circle, I know I'm getting long-winded, is Darnell Nurse. I think Darnell Nurse has to be a big factor in this, because we know what Evan Bouchard can do offensively, and we know the big Swede and Ekholm is going to be physical and be tough to play against. But I think Darnell Nurse has an opportunity to continue his strong play and really, quiet his detractors, we'll call it, because there are people that still line up to kick him in the junk. But I think Nurse has to be a difference maker in this series.
So many things that I want to get to. I mean, we got to get to the two games last night. They were both absolutely phenomenal hockey games. The Rangers got the win. I think Trouba was probably waking up with a bit of a headache today after going headfirst in the boards on that flying check over Marty Necas. But, I mean, I thought Anderson made some big saves in overtime as well, but Shesterkin just would not allow Carolina to find that winner, would he?
No, and he might be in their head a little bit. Like, I thought Carolina really had a great push, and Shesterkin made save after save. He was good and tight. One thing that Shesterkin does when he's on his game, he plays with a lot of emotion. Svechnikov gives him a little clip there behind the net, and the team responds. Like, Shesterkin's a guy that you can tell he gets emotional in the net, but when it's going very well for him, you can see that force field around him. So, Carolina, I thought, for the most part was a better team, but it didn't matter. You get the big goal in overtime, and the Rangers have a stranglehold so far. And, the old saying, you're not out of the series until you lose a game on home ice. So we'll see how that unfolds.
What about the other side? What's it do for Dallas? Like, what's it do to Dallas when you're up 3-0 against Colorado, and then they storm back, take game one in your barn in that fashion? I know there's a long way to go in this series still, and we saw what happened after they dropped 2 to Vegas, but that's still got to be a kick in the nuts today for Dallas.
It was, because Dallas was all over him. It looked like Georgie 5 was going to get the gate, and all of a sudden he settled into the game and made some saves. And then Colorado big boys took over their power play. Obviously, that's the one thing. Dallas gave them an opportunity on the power play, and Colorado gets some momentum off of it. And then, McKinnon goes to work. Makar was all over the ice. Rantanen is such a force. Like, that team, the goal by Miles Wood was just, you see how fast he was skating? All I could think about was how fast that series was, like how fast the pace was of that game. That's what I'm expecting to happen between Edmonton and Vancouver tonight. The pace of the game needs to be really high. I think that favors the Oilers, but I think Colorado, I'm not gonna try and jinx it or anything. I don't have any skin in the game. But I always felt, and I said, I did my predictions at the start of the playoffs. I thought it was going to be Colorado and Edmonton in the Western Finals, and I thought it was going to be the Rangers and Florida in the Eastern Finals. That was my picks. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I had the Rangers winning the Cup this year, and I had Colorado as coming out of the West. So we'll see. They're all strong teams. Edmonton's got a chance. I think they're a hell of a team. And I think they'll be kind of coming out of their skin, getting ready to play tonight, because it's been too long. I know the fans are pissed. They want to get at it, but it's going to be every second night from here on in, and we'll see how it unfolds.
Noodles, as always, buddy, really appreciate it. And we're going to keep I wanted to get to Travis Green, but we don't got time. We got too many other things to do here. So we'll save Travis Green for an off-season discussion at some point, all right?
Anytime you want, because Greeny's a good buddy of mine, and it's obviously I do Ottawa games, so I've got lots to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get into that at some point for sure. There he goes, Jamie McLennan for Pro Am Sports. See you later, Noodles. Enjoy the game.